future, shattered dreams. End of times ain't what it seems.
Hello friends, this is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today's November 13th, 2025. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. We have quite a bit to get to. Sadly, it's a very sad, probably the saddest day of the year. The government reopened last night. And so loser Trump and the rest of the loser government signed the continuing resolution to kick the can of debt down the road. And so we can look forward to the same routine in like another 2 months. 38 trillion plus and ticking by the second of national debt. So they mortgage our future to keep the crime syndicate funded. It's they're all physically irresponsible. This is an illegitimate government. And they're all criminals, every one of them. We'll go over that. They all cheered on. Shows you what a loser Trump is, all of them, especially Republicans. It's truly disgusting. They've opened the government. Run for your lives. Looks like they're rolling out a giant war. Looks like that's what they're going to do here now to distract from the economy, from Epstein, failed foreign policy all over the place. Looks like, well, today the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, unveiled the plaque, Department of War. And so all signs point toward a major war here now. What is it called? It's in the title. The Department of War told us today, Operation Southern Spear from Southcom. So it's looking like we're going to get in a major war here. And I keep saying they're prepping in your popular culture, on your television, in your sports ball games. They're prepping the propaganda right now to prepare the idiot American mind to get behind another war effort in the never-ending war on terror, the latest, newest target after we know Al-Qaeda, ISIS has been reformed. Now they're the good guys, as we learned this week. The new target, narco drug trafficking cartel that the CIA set up. So same routine. We set up the boogeyman, same as with the terrorism, same routine. We set up the radical Islamic jihadist terrorist. We fund them, train them, arm them, radicalize them, then say that's the boogeyman, never-ending war on terror. Now we're going to do the same routine with the drug war, the never-ending war on drugs. I got news for you. Drugs won a long time ago. Same routine. CIA set up these cartels, essentially, and Western intelligence to handle the smuggling of drugs, humans, name your contraband. We needed a new boogeyman. Al-Qaeda's been reformed. There you are, narco traffickers. But the CIA set it up. It don't matter. It doesn't matter. We have to do regime change, you see, to keep you safe from fentanyl. And so same routine as with Al-Qaeda, as with these alleged drug cartels. Now there's a new boogeyman, the drug cartels, the fentanyl traffickers. We got to get them. Never mind the fact that Venezuela has untold wealth in oil, natural gas, gold, all these natural resources. Never mind that. It's not about that. It's about keeping you safe from fentanyl that the CIA ships in, or at least helps, aids in the process at the very least here now. So same routine. They're prepping us for a major war here now. quite concerning. We'll cover all that. We'll go over all this, the latest Epstein email reporting. We have that to dig through. We have geopolitical news, economic news, and the genocide in Gaza continues. It's a ceasefire. I get the report today, only 2 killed. So, you know what I mean? Only 2 Palestinians killed. Actually, only 1 new and 1 recovered from the rubble. As we're stacking bodies, and they call it a ceasefire. All right, let's get to this day in history. On this day, where are we at here? Thank you everybody for tuning in on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. Let me go to the chats quickly, and we'll blast through all this information for you. Who do we got here? Ruckus. Shout out to Ruckus. Fat Bob, Chloe, Deaf Ears. Who else do we got? We got somebody new. I'm Doc over there on the kick. Shout out to you. Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm Doc on the kick over there. Yeah, bastards. You'll see. wait till the show. We'll illustrate what bastards the government are. They are bastards. All right, this day in history. Shout out to all the channels, all the chats. Love you guys out there. Weaponized News Hounds. Arr, 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 arr. On this very sad day of government opening again. Thank you for joining us. All right, on this day in history of November 13th, in the year 1775, American Revolutionary Forces capture Montreal on this day. In 1789, on this day, in a letter to John Baptiste Leroy, Benjamin Franklin writes, "In his world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." And so that's where that famous saying comes from. You know what I mean? Nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Indeed, there. Profound statement by founding father Benjamin Franklin on this day, 1789. In 1839 on this day, the first U.S. anti-slavery party, Liberty Party, convenes in New York. 1839 on this day. 1849, the first, I got screwed up here on my order. Okay, the first governor of the Golden State, California, was elected on this day, Peter Burnett. In 1865, on this day, U.S. issues first gold certificates. In 1820, on this day, the Hudson River freezes at Albany, New York. And we've come to learn here now, Walt Disney, turns out the mouse was a rat for the feds. On this day in 1940, Walt Disney's animated film Fantasia was released in 1940. Premieres at Broadway Theater in New York City. In 1946, on this day, and this is some early geoengineering for the weather manipulating fans out there in the audience. In 1946, on this day, scientist Vincent Schaefer produces the first artificial snow by dropping pellets of dry ice from an airplane into a supercooled cloud over Mount Greylock, Massachusetts. That's 1946. They've been trying to manipulate, engineering, experimenting with the weather for a very, very long time here now. In 1964, on this day, hey, maybe we had an actual real Pope. I don't know. At least at that time, 1964, on this day, Pope Paul IV gives up the jewel encrusted gold papal crown, donating it to the poor people at the service in Rome. Where's all the popes like this dude, Pope Paul IV? Know what I'm saying? The Vatican literally has untold wealth, literally priceless wealth, but yet, you know what I'm saying? So good on that Pope Paul IV in 1964. In 1982, on this day, Vietnam Veterans Memorial opens in Washington, D.C., featuring the names of over 58,000 U.S. soldiers killed or missing in the Vietnam War. Again, started by a false flag attack. The Gulf of Tonkin second incident literally never happened. And on this day in 1986, the great conservative U.S. President Ronald Reagan confesses weapon sales to Iran. And on to this day in our civil liberties history, I think we have two reports. Going back to the year 1969, on this day, Spiro Agnew, then vice president, in a Des Moines, Iowa speech entitled "On the National Media," attacked the national media for its coverage of the Vietnam War and President Nixon's policies on the war. Agnew attacked the news media by charging that a spirit of national machismoism prevails, encouraged by an effete corpse of impudent snobs who characterize themselves as intellectuals. The speech was widely regarded as a veiled threat of a crackdown on the media, particularly the three major television networks that were regulated by the FCC. Protests against President Nixon's Vietnam War policy escalated, with the first moratorium on October 15, 1969. Agnew's speech came 2 days before the second and even larger moratorium, November 15, 1969. Agnew took the lead for the administration in making the most stringent criticism of the anti-war movement. Agnew resigned as vice president in October of 1973 because of corruption charges from his earlier political career in Maryland. And then here's a pretty big one. On this day in 2001, George W. Bush announces that he was ordering military tribunals to try captured terrorist suspects being held at Guantanamo Bay. The first detainees began arriving at Guantanamo Bay on January 11, 2002. In fact, the U.S. has used military commissions a number of times in its history, including under George Bush during the Civil War, the war in the Philippines, and World War II. The military tribunals were immediately criticized by civil libertarians and human rights activists because of their lack of due process protections. The president exceeded his authority to create the commissions without congressional authorization, and the order did not allow for review by any civilian court, including the Supreme Court. Trials were conducted in secret with the defendant not permitted to confront or contest evidence presented against him, and non-anonymous verdicts and non-unanimous verdicts of guilty were permitted. The Supreme Court ruled in Hanman versus Rumsfeld on June 29th, 2006, that the Bush military tribunals violated both the Uniform Code of Military Justice and Common Article 3 of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. The Hamdan decision forced Congress to pass the 2006 Military Tribunals Act in October of 2006. The new law, however, also contained a number of civil liberties violations. Procedures for the military commissions were subsequently revised under President Barack Hussein Obama. Truly disgusting violation of human rights there by the Bush administration, led by Dick Cheney. Thankfully, he's no longer with us. And here's a segue to the news. The longest shutdown driven by Democrats is finally over. They held America hostage for nothing. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and fought every day to reopen it. That's why you're losers, Republicans and Trump. Now let's get America back to work. Let's see this propaganda out of the White House, how wonderful it is to have the government open.
For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers. Republicans never wanted a shutdown and voted 15 times for a clean continuation of funding. The federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again.
What a pack of loser criminal scum all of them are. So, hey, yeah, now you can blame Trump. He signed it. He's the reason the government's open. F you, Trump. The government shutdown's over. The State Department tells us back to work. That means, more war. Thanks to the president, we are back and ready to deploy America First foreign policy that is both effective and efficient. What a bunch of bullshit. That's the State Department led by little Marco Rubio. The White House says the damage of the 43-day Democrat shutdown will not be forgotten. Missed paychecks, $10 billion plus in wages benefits held, millions of low-income families lost SNAP, flight disruptions, billions wiped out from the economy, all to appease the radical left, and they gained nothing. Let's hear from Bobblehead Leavitt, press secretary, pumping some propaganda out of the White House.
The damage caused by the Democrats with this reckless government shutdown cannot be forgotten. It is entirely the fault of the Democrat Party. Just look at the vote count. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have missed their paychecks. Tens of billions in wages and benefits were withheld, impacting vulnerable families. Millions of low-income Americans missed their SNAP benefits. Nearly 20,000 flights at airports across the country were delayed due to staffing shortages, causing Americans to miss family events, vacations, and work obligations. According to Airlines for America, an estimated 5.2 million travelers have had their flights disrupted over the course of the Democrat shutdown. And our economy has lost billions and billions of dollars in economic activity over the course of this shutdown, hurting consumer sentiment and crushing the travel and hospitality industries.
It's the government, not just the Democrats, the Republicans and independents in between. Airlines for America posted, with President Trump's signature, the longest shutdown in our nation's history has finally come to an end. This prolonged disruption placed significant strain on millions of Americans, including travelers, shippers, and the federal employees who keep our aviation system safe. Here's the signature by Trump selling us out.
So with all of that, I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you.
What a load of bullshit. How anybody could support Trump's beyond me. You're not conservative. You're fake. You're all fake. I guess you're MAGA personality cult victims. You're definitely not America first. You're not even conservative at this point. You're just literal clowns supporting this corrupt piece of trash and forever supporting any government ever. Let's take it to that, because that's literally the truth of the matter. I found this an interesting choice of words posted by the First Lady, Melania Trump, today, as they rolled out, what's this initiative, Fostering the Future. Together, we will illuminate the pathway for today's foster children to become tomorrow's builders, and tomorrow's builders will foster the future of America's legacy. Let's watch this short clip from today.
Welcome to the White House. It is truly inspiring to see everyone gather here together, united in support of this remarkable initiative and community. As I stand here and observe the audience, I recognize the vital importance of each one of you to this mission, to our future generations. In particular, I would like to thank the Cabinet Secretaries, Congress members, scholarship donors, and various organizations for their unending effort.
Yeah. Hopefully they do help these foster kids. So yeah, Trump signs executive order today, fostering the future. Supporting America's foster youth. This is rich. Here's the Bible tells us from Trump, this is rich.
The Bible tells us that one of the measures of any society is how it cares for vulnerable children and orphans. So important, and it's so big in the Bible. So as we make America great again, we are going to protect American children in foster care, and we're going to ensure that they will never, ever be forgotten. These children will never be forgotten, and they're going to grow up to be unbelievable, strong, smart, wealthy, productive citizens.
This is what it's all about.
Each year, more than 15,000 young people age out of the foster care system, and unfortunately, too many struggle to become self-sufficient. The order I will sign in a few moments will provide vital new resources to help young people transition out of the foster care system and live a very happy and a very successful life. Very, very successful. With this order, I'm directing the heads of the key federal departments and agencies to establish a Fostering the Future program in coordination with our wonderful First Lady's office. They're coordinating, and they've already been coordinating for quite some time, and I think I hear it's going really well. You're going to have some, when she gets involved in things, it works, I can tell you that. Under this major new initiative, great American companies and institutions will be signing a pledge to invest in teaching, training, and mentoring America's youth who are transitioning out of the foster care system. This will help provide jobs, education, and personal development opportunities to fantastic young people who truly need and deserve them, and they're going to get them.
Yeah, I wish I could believe that they're genuine in their sentiment. I see over there in the comments, yeah, they may be trafficked to Eastern Europe. We simply can't trust these monsters known as the government. And after all that today, Trump ends the executive order signing ceremony without taking questions because they're asking about Epstein. But he cares about the foster kids, let me tell you. Trump wouldn't have anything to do with Epstein. He just signed that foster kids executive order. Peter Duke at the Duke Report says, we don't have a government. This doesn't just apply to the United States of America. We have a TV show that can take our stuff and kill us, that fronts for a mafia controlled by banks. Until people realize that, it will continue to get worse. It's time to cancel the TV show. And then I replied to him, and this was his original post, but I adapted it to make it full screen. Yeah, we need more rope. Just saying. Okay, on to Epstein. A lot of Epstein news has come out today. Let's see what headlines shall be interesting. Author Michael Wolff. Maybe we should look at Michael Wolff. He had a very close relationship with Epstein. Be anti-Trump for political cover was noticed by Ann Coulter in one of these email exchanges between Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein. Larry Summers was 64 years old when he had this email exchange with Jeffrey Epstein. It truly goes to show that every human being, no matter their age, wealth, and power, is secretly an insecure 12-year-old. Let's take a look at this. Of course, Larry Summers, what a big banker dude. What is he? He's a big banker dude. He was in the Obama administration, all tied up with the Federal Reserve. He's like a economics professor, Harvard, all this. Anyhow, here's the email exchange. She's smart, making you pay for past errors. Ignore the daddy. I'm going to go out with the motorcycle guy. You reacted well. Annoyed shows caring. No whining showed strength. We talked on phone. Then I can't talk later. Didn't think I can talk tomorrow. I said, what are you up to? She said, I'm busy. I said, awfully coy you are. And then I said, did you really rearrange the weekend? We were going to be together because guy number 3 was coming. She said, no, his schedule changed after we changed our plans. I said, no, I got to go. Call me when you feel like it. Tone was not good feeling. I didn't want to be in a gift giving competition while being the friend without benefits. These guys are freak shows, man. Freak shows. Larry Summers, Epstein, all these clowns. They're disconnected and they're freak shows. Jeffrey Epstein claimed he gave Russians insight into Trump. Headline out of Politico. After Trump split, Epstein said he could take him down. Headline out of New York. Failing New York Times. Epstein bantered regularly with Larry Summers. We just showed you one of those emails. Epstein wrote disturbing email to himself before suicide. Daily Mail headline. Latest Epstein files knock White House on its heels. Politico. Cover up. How the DOJ tried and failed to bury Trump's Epstein files. Mediaite. And then let's blast through, give you a little bit more details here, and then we'll get to some more of these emails. Epstein's claims of damaging knowledge. Epstein asserted he could, quote, take Trump down based on intimate details about Trump's finances, properties, and personal behavior, including a disputed claim that Trump knew about Epstein's recruitment of young women from Mar-a-Lago, insults and character assessments. In various emails, Epstein labeled Trump as, quote, borderline insane, quote, demented, and intellectually deficient, critiquing his policy decisions and summit performances, such as the 2018 Helsinki meeting with Putin. Russian insight claim. Epstein claimed to have shared insights on Trump with Russian officials, including the late ambassador Vitaly Churkin, and suggested facilitating contact with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to provide further understanding on Trump's mindset. Wolf's anti-Trump advice. Journalist Michael Wolff recommended that Epstein publicly oppose Trump as a strategy for, quote, political cover against negative publicity from an upcoming book proposing op-eds, interviews, and PR campaigns. Summers Epstein banter. Epstein exchanged frequent personal emails with there you go, he's the Treasury Secretary, with former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, offering relationship advice and handling a female acquaintance. He's getting relationship advice from Epstein. You should get it from the red pill brosphere incels on the interweb. You'll probably have you'll probably get better advice from those clowns than Epstein. But hey, Epstein was a master manipulator, so maybe not. You know what I mean? He knew how to manipulate people at a very high level, obviously. Pre-suicide email in February 2019, Epstein drafted an email to himself claiming Trump visited his Palm Beach home multiple times and was aware of his activities, though he denied any massages occurred. This was later forwarded to Wolff. Financial scrutiny. Epstein directed his accountant to analyze Trump's financial disclosures, describing them as, quote, nonsense, and highlighting inconsistencies in debts, income, and charitable activities. DOJ cover-up allegations. Opinion pieces argue that the Trump-era Department of Justice prematurely closed the Epstein case after briefing Trump on mentions of his name in the files, failing to review thousands of pages and potentially bearing incriminating material indicating Trump. Political repercussions. The file release has stained the White House, prompting internal GOP fractures and a potential House vote to compel full disclosure, with Trump dismissing it all as a Democrat hoax. Public relations on X. Discussions on platforms like X highlight the immaturity in Epstein-Summers exchanges, while users noting the irony of high-profile figures seeking Epstein's counsel on personal matters, underscoring broader perceptions of elite insecurity. Yeah, they're disconnected from reality. These are weird freaks, okay? Weird freaks with a whole lot of money. In September 2016, just before the US presidential election, Epstein received a report from former Indiana politician Zubair Khan analyzing social media sentiment. In this email exchange, he said, "We processed 11 million tweets this week for Trump, and 50.03% are positive. Only 20.66% are negative, whereas Clinton is 56.05% negative and 20.03% positive. We are trying to correlate that into popular vote outcome and electoral votes received." New York Times journalist Landon Thomas Jr. to Epstein before the 2016 presidential elections, "I don't think Trump or his voters would care. Being effectively shameless is a pretty powerful weapon for a presidential candidate." Let's see, and that's in reply to Epstein saying, "It's getting scary, the stories you could tell." Jeffrey Epstein wrote an entire speech for Edmund Burke shortly. That's shortly after the 2014 Gaza war, while he was Aardvark Land's defense minister. Epstein to former Aardvark Land Prime Minister Edmund Burke in August of 2013. "I think you might point out that gassing off women and children is an expression from the 20th century. Women are no longer equivalent to children. It's civilians versus combatants only." Epstein paid Al Shekel to remove negative online articles about him in 2010. Shekel died in 2015 in France under mysterious circumstances, while his cause of death still unconfirmed. Well, we know he didn't kill himself, right? Palantir CEO Peter Thiel, this in 2018, exchanged emails with Epstein in November 2018, despite Epstein already being a convicted sex offender at the time. "Don't regulate AI, the Antichrist may rise." Thank you, Peter Thiel, for that. Epstein in May of 2017 provided advice and intelligence to an unnamed diplomat concerning a proposed ceasefire offer from Ansarallah, the Houthis, to the Saudi-backed Yemeni government forces during the Yemen civil war. Epstein told a New York Times journalist Landon Thomas in a November 2016 email that Donald Trump showed no loyalty to anyone and he doesn't like getting advice. Foreign Norwegian Prime Minister Jagland told Epstein in a June 2016 email that he would settle on Little St. James if Donald Trump won the US presidential election. Epstein to Larry Summers, February 2017. "Recall, I've told you I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body." So think of what a scumbag criminal Epstein is, and he's saying that even Bill Clinton's too big of a liar to even hang out with, and Trump's a piece of garbage. Basically, he's a very bad person. So think of that. They're all bad. I got news for you. They're all bad. There's no good guys in this story. They're all scum. Jeffrey Epstein claims Hillary Clinton had a sexual relationship with former attorney Vince Foster, didn't kill himself. Vince Foster committed suicide under mysterious conditions in 1993. So quite a bit has come out. I do believe more is going to come out. That's our Epstein email coverage for today. Epstein killed himself. Wait, he didn't kill himself? He did. I don't know. My eyes are getting crossed like Patel at the FBI. No, he didn't. He didn't kill himself. FBI released doctored footage. Remember that whole debacle? And so, indeed, the Department of Justice is covering up for Trump at the very least here now. Look over there. Look over there. Should be looking right there. Trump's all part of this. Trump's part of it. They're going to distract with a major war is definitely what it looks like here now. It's not only because of Epstein. I do believe a major part of it is the economy, as well as they continue to lie to us how wonderful the economy is in America's golden age. It's flat out lies. Sadly, based John Fetterman, well, he's not based anymore because he's a big aardvark supporter. If you get right in the universe, maybe these health incidences wouldn't keep happening to him. Senator John Fetterman hospitalized after collapsing due to a ventricle fibrillation flare-up. It's allegedly reported he fell down and hit his head.
News for you from Senator Fetterman's team. During an early walk, he sustained a fall near his home. Out of an abundance of caution, he was transported to a hospital. Upon evaluation, it was established he had a ventricular fibrillation flare-up that led to him feeling lightheaded, falling to the ground, and hitting his face with minor injuries. Senator Fetterman, always in good spirits, always an optimist, quipped to his team, "If you thought my face looked bad before, wait until you see it."
Oh, isn't that cute? He should take another miracle and go to aardvark land, honestly, and that'll cure him. Today, the Justice Department sued Governor Newsom over his brazen Proposition 50 redistricting power grab, also simultaneously covering up for Trump and Epstein. Newsom should be concerned about keeping Californians safe and shutting down Antifa violence, not rigging his state for political gain. Blondie Bondi, Attorney General, said in a post today. Trump official refers Democrat Representative Eric Swalwell for a federal criminal probe over alleged mortgage fraud. Swalwell is the latest Democrat to face mortgage fraud allegations from Federal Housing Finance Agency. Yeah. Again, they're all scum. So, FBI Cash Patel. I don't know where the Epstein files are, and I can't look at you straight in the eye because I'm a liar. That Cash Patel, yeah, says this FBI will lead the manhunt against all who threaten our brave public servants. And this is in reply to a threat against U.S. Attorney Habba. Says, I will not be intimidated by radical lunatics for doing my job. And so, of course, they have to cook up. They're the victims. Obviously, they're the victims. And your government's a fraud. Department of Homeland Security, around 47,000 frontline TSA officers continue to do an excellent job working throughout the shutdown despite Democrats holding up their paycheck. Yeah, because they enjoy abusing people. They're sadistic perverts at the very least. The TSA, and for that matter, the Department of Homeland Security is unconstitutional. It should be abolished. And they've never caught one terrorist since 9/11. But they want to naked body scan you, irradiate you, date rape you without even giving you a reach around, without even buying you a drink at the airport. Today, Ice Barbie dog killer Kristi Noem awarded $10,000 bonuses to the dedicated men and women of the TSA who showed up every day to serve and protect the American people. They're not protecting anything. It's security theater at the airport. It's literally tyranny, and they got a $10,000 bonus check for their efforts.
So today we are announcing that we are going to be handing out bonus checks of $10,000 to TSOs, to agents who work for TSA who served with exemplary service. And what that means is that we are going to not only continue their paychecks like they should have received all along, but also they're going to get a bonus check for stepping up, taking on extra shifts, for showing up each and every day, for serving the American people, and taking seriously the mission that the Department of Homeland Security takes seriously and that they take seriously.
Giant fraud, lies. All these people are frauds. You are the problem. All these people, you are the problem. There you go. This is the problem. Easily identifiable. Yeah, $10,000 bonus check for never catching a terrorist because it's all bullshit. Judge orders release of over 300 Operation Midway Blitz detainees. So they're bragging yesterday they busted all the bad guys. Turns out a federal judge yesterday ordered the release of more than 300 people detained by the federal government as part of the federal immigration enforcement operation being conducted in the Chicago area. Attorneys say the government violated a federal consent decree by making arrests without warrants. Oh, you need warrants. We don't need no stinking warrants. We're the federal government, right? U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Cummings ordered the Department of Justice to release 13 detainees who were rounded up by ICE in Operation Midway Blitz on bond by Friday, and wants detailed reports about more than 600 others being held. Attorneys say as many as 300 of those illegal aliens are being wrongfully held and could be released within days if they have no criminal histories. They're all criminals. They broke U.S. immigration law. And again, all of that's lost in this idiocy. Back to the mass deportation promises made. Well, no, they lied to us. They lied to us. There is no mass deportation campaign going on. There's mass propaganda campaign going on, but there is no mass deportation campaign going on. The deportations will continue, the White House tells us. More than 2 million illegal migrants have deported since January. And again, 1.6, this is according to their data. We can't believe anything the lying government says. They say 1.6 million illegals have self-deported. And so that leaves 400,000 actually deported. So total failure, lies. And then we get to this. Trump organization sought a record number of foreign workers, according to a report out of Forbes. The Trump administration tried to bring in over at least 184 foreign workers in 2025 for jobs at Mar-a-Lago, 2 golf clubs, and Virginia winery. Trump is split with his MAGA base on foreign workers and students. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. No, he's a liar. Trump's a liar and a fraud. Another liar and fraud, Mr. Technocracy, Vice President J.D. Vance. Take a listen to this.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy, but that also takes a little bit of time. There's another component of this, Sean, which to me is maybe the most important because I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough.
You catch that number? Now the Vice President of America, Mr. Technocracy, J.D. Vance, is claiming 30 million illegal aliens in this country. 30 million. I think it's even more than that. There is no mass deportations. Trump has sold us out on immigration. And it's all political theater and lies, violating rights all over the place and building these giant immigrant detention centers, FEMA camps, that will be used on you and I in the near future here. They inherited the inflation from the Biden. Another just came to my mind about that clip. Oh, they inherited the bad economy and the inflation from the Biden administration. Trump did Operation Warp Speed. He locked down the economy. He shut down the global supply chains, i.e. Operation Lockstep. Bobblehead Blonde Levitt says, if not for the Jeffrey Epstein story, CNN would be forced to talk about how Chuck Schumer and the Democrats got shellacked by Trump and Republicans in the government shutdown fight. It's clear this is another Democrat plus mainstream media hoax fueled by fake outrage to distract from the president's wins. Republicans, don't be fooled. Trump will remain focused on making America affordable again. Maybe lock down the economy again. That could help. Where are we at here? Our economic reporting. Let's see, where are we at here? Can we get through that? We can get through that in 7 minutes. Before the top of the hour, USDA staff told to search grants for terms like diversity, equity, socially valuable, climate modeling, and carbon pricing to flag them for cancellation under Trump's anti-DEI and anti-climate directives. About 600 grants worth $3 billion were ultimately canceled, according to a report out of Reuters. And so that's a good thing. I agree with this. Foreclosures surged 20% as Americans struggle to pay mortgages and fears of 2008 style crash soar. That's a report out of the Daily Mail. Foreclosures, when a bank or lender takes back a home after missing mortgage payments, are once again on the rise in America. In October alone, there were 36,766 foreclosure filings. That's not good in the greatest economy ever, according to Trump. States with the most foreclosures, let's take a look. Take a look here. California, very extremely high cost of living, so not surprising there at all. Florida, surprisingly, pretty high cost of living there too, I suppose. But so here's the list of foreclosures. Can we get it all on one page? There we go. yeah, so not looking good with all these foreclosures. Congressional hemp restrictions threaten $28 billion industry, sending companies scrambling. The congressional funding bill included a THC cap that effectively bans most hemp products. A movie industry a move industry leaders say threatens the $28 billion market. More than 300,000 jobs are at risk, with economic impacts expected in states with large hemp sectors, including Kentucky, Texas, and Utah. Executives warn the ban could fuel a surge in black market sales if federal regulators aren't if federal regulations aren't adapted within a year, as demand for hemp-derived THC remains strong. So yeah, they threw a curveball there, and let's tank the hemp market. Here's Treasury Secretary again. We reported this yesterday, but it is historic. It says yesterday marked a historic moment with the striking of the last penny at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. No more pennies, man. No more pennies. They tell us it costs more to produce a penny than a penny is worth. 1 penny, right? Well, stop debasing the currency. Oh, no, never mind that. Y'all got to get on digital ID, social credit score system for your own safety from the terrorists that the government created. You see, it's all for your own safety. And so there's no more pennies. As we continue to improve efficiency across the government, what a joke that is, and deliver on Trump's campaign promises, there is no mass deportation. Somebody should tell old Treasury Secretary that. This milestone will save American taxpayers upwards of $56 million with an M per year in production costs alone. Meanwhile, the penny will remain an enduring symbol of American history for decades to come. And here is the did they even give us an image? I guess this is the best we got. Here's an image of the last penny minted yesterday. And so, yeah, we're going into this full digital control system. Technocracy. More lies out of the White House here. Trump signed the largest middle class tax cuts in history. End individual income taxation theft. Trump unleashed American energy dominance. They're still talking about low gas prices. We've covered for the last 2 days, according to AAA data, nationwide, on average, the price of gas is 1 cent cheaper or the same. So just outright lies. Lower prescription drugs. That's right. We started a new war on drugs, and you should buy your drugs now from trumprx.gov. Wages are rising at the fastest pace in 60 years. What? And the cost of the typical new mortgage is down by nearly $3,000 per year. Talk to all those people that got foreclosed on. Never forget, Joe Biden and the Democrats unleashed the worst inflation crisis in 4 decades. It was Trump. It's the government. It's Trump, Biden, the government. It's all these assholes. I just like to blame Biden. You know what I mean? It's bullshit. Here's comedian Tim Dillon on technocratic oligarchs, how they use controlled chaos to make people beg for digital control. Well, we're almost there. We are there. We are there.
and replace it with an AI government or...
Apologies. This is a good analysis. I did not have the sound on. Sorry. Let's play it again.
And Bannon, who's kind of on the other side, is going, I hate this tech oligarchy. I hate them. And I don't want anything to do with them, and they scare me. But they have all the money. So half of the Trump administration is people that are genuinely going, what can we do to tank the economy, crater it, and then build it back our way? How do we usher in a surveillance state that's more draconian even than the one we have now? How do we eliminate any constitutional checks and balances on what we want to do? They believe the American government has failed and they want to replace it now. This isn't like hidden. That's a substantial power faction within that administration. People that want to get rid of the American government and replace it with an AI government or a straight up oligarchy of tech feudalists who don't believe in representative government. They believe in buying you off with crypto, which will be biometrically linked to you when you're born. You know, it'll be like your eyes blink and you've got however much crypto they think you need to survive, because there's not going to be any jobs. These are the conversations that they're having. The jobs are going to go away. And then what are you going to do with all these people? Well, you need to surveil them. You need to find a way to give them money. But I don't think you're going to be traveling. I don't want you traveling. They've even said that. Larry Fink has come out and said, hey, folks, you know, we're in the period where all these assets are being tokenized. It's all going on the blockchain. And, you know, we're beginning a massive transformation of the economy. You could call it the fourth industrial revolution, but it is a massive transformation of the existing.
You know exactly what it is. Somebody needs to get in Tim Dillon's ear there and let him know about technocracy. I think he knows about it, but that's exactly what all this is. What he just described there is technocracy. Economy's great. We're in a golden age. Verizon to cut 15,000 jobs. And even more than that, I do believe, report out of Reuters. I've seen other reports. They upped it to 20,000. Golden age of America, bro. With that, let's take our live commercial break at the top of the hour. Everybody go to weaponizednews.com. Get yourself some stickers over there. We got the holograph sticker, the white background sticker, and the clear sticker at weaponizednews.com. We do have some... if John is listening in there, I did create a couple hats over there. There's still one more that I was working on, but here's a couple new items at the Weaponized News store for your patronage. And we did have John yesterday asking about a cap. So I did make a couple caps and put them available there. This one I do believe is higher quality, and we got the red, you got the black, and this embroidered Weaponized News logo on there. Let me show you this a little bit closer. Pretty nice, actually. Pretty nice. You got the gray there with the white net, your classic khaki, the more gray, and then a pink for the ladies. And then this one also, the Weaponized News retro trucker hat with Weaponized News logo on it. We have all black or white, as you can see there, white netting with a classic black two-tone going on there. A bunch of shirts over at the Weaponized News store as well. Weaponized News Hounds. I saw somebody in the chat say that. Here is the Weaponized News Hounds shirt. Many different colors available. Let me show you this one. Weaponized News Hounds on the front, and then the back has the classic Weaponized News logo there on the back of the t-shirt. Again, thank you to all of the subscribers to Weaponized News, all the patrons to Weaponized News store. Go to weaponizednews.com, go to the store, support independent reporting and analysis on the interwebs like no one else. What, in about 2.5 weeks or something like this, the first Monday of December, we're scheduled to go ahead and bring Simon back on, and we're going to do a little bit of a run with Simon on the show. And so we shall be having our deep dives, our deep geopolitical dives with Simon. We'll welcome him back in another 3 weeks. And we're also going to launch, I believe we agreed on a series of nine special custom shirts to promote Simon's comeback on the show. And so they will be designed by Simon, and we'll sell them through Weaponized News store. So we can look forward to that for your highbrow intellectual, t-shirts, t-shirt designs. I don't know. A lot of Simon's stuff goes over most people's heads, but I'm sure our dedicated listeners will enjoy his highbrow geopolitical analysis. Look forward to that next month at Weaponized News. Go to weaponizednews.com. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. Welcome back to the second half of the show, November 13th, 2025, Thursday edition. Should we report on this anymore? I don't know. It feels like it's a blip on the radar, and we reported on it yesterday, but it feels like we should, make more of a big deal about this. The hunting parties that went on over there in Sarajevo feels like kind of a big deal that we should be, because remember, we heard the rumors and the conspiracy theories, quote, conspiracy theories on the internet for many years. And now it's coming out that indeed this is happening. They're hunting humans for the thrill of it. And we reported on it yesterday, but it still feels like it's going to be a blip on the radar and go away. And it's a pretty damn big story. Wealthy foreigners paid, this report out of UK Telegraph says, paid 80,000 pounds or euros for a weekend safaris to kill civilians in Sarajevo. And we went over the details that we could get from the reporting yesterday. But yeah, amateur snipers paid anywhere between 80 to 100,000 euros to take part in chilling sport of killing people for the thrill of it, killing men, women, and children. They're in literal human safari hunting parties in Sarajevo. It's all come out now in court filings. War tourists, they were called. And so it feels like a big story that we can't just let be a little blip on the radar, because this illustrates, these quote elites are in a different world, disconnected from the rest of us. And they all need to be put in FEMA camps for society's safety. Do they care so much about our safety? Well, these characters that would find it fit to go murder people because there's a war going on and they think they can use that as cover, they all need to be put in a FEMA camp for society's safety. And this is still going on to this day. It's just now we know through court filings that, yes, this happened. And don't you think Epstein was part of this as well. Maybe not this specific incident, but part of that network that goes on human safari hunts. You better believe it. All of these, quote, elites are part of this. The human trafficking, the drug trafficking, the organ harvesting, the human safaris, all of it. It's all the same assholes doing all of this. But now it's confirmed. Now it's confirmed. And they're still doing it today. Better believe it. All right. So the government's back open. First thing Pete Hegseth does today is go put the plaque on the former Department of Defense. It's the Department of War. Here's the video. They're giving us a lot of hints. Looks like we're going to war.
Nice. There we go.
There you go. Department of War. Top officials present Trump with military options for Venezuela in the coming days, according to a report out of CBS News. Senior military officials yesterday presented Trump with updated options for potential operations in Venezuela, including strikes on land, according to multiple sources familiar with the meeting at the White House. Secretary of War Hegseth, Joint Chiefs of Staff, we're all there briefing the president on options for the coming days. No decision was made yet about what shall be done. Over the last 2 months, the U.S. military has conducted strikes against at least 21 vessels it alleges were ferrying drugs from South America to America. There have been 20 strikes so far, but an operation in late October targeted 2 boats. At least 80 alleged smugglers have been killed in the strikes. 2 survived and were repatriated to their home countries of Ecuador and Colombia. Feels like we're getting ready. Well, I don't know what could give me that idea. The Secretary of War, here's his post earlier today, right after he put out that placard. Trump ordered action. The Department of War is delivering. Today, I'm announcing Operation Southern Spear, led by Joint Task Force Southern Spear and Southcom. This mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. Here's Southcom right after all this. Put out this video. U.S. service members and Panamanian security forces personnel recently trained together. We reported on that. Here's video from Southcom. Yeah, so all signs are pointing toward a major military operation there in South America, Venezuela. Southcom also posted a U.S. Marine with the 22nd conducts battery training aboard USS Iwo Jima. U.S. military forces are deployed to the Caribbean in support of Southcom's mission. Venezuelan President Maduro said many people have denounced the ongoing campaign to smear Venezuela and its revolution, first against Chavez, then Maduro, with the goal of justifying any action against the country. Imperialism and the CIA have used these tactics before. In 1954, they overthrew Guatemala's Democrat President Jacobo Arbenez by branding him a communist simply because he sought land reform, democracy, and workers' rights. The country, unable to defend itself, fell into decades of brutal dictatorship, leaving around 300,000 dead or disappeared. 50 years later, the CIA admitted Arbez wasn't a communist, but a Democrat, and an admission that came far too late. More from Maduro. He says they've tried to label and stigmatize us for years, first as communist, then terrorist. Now imperial powers invent even more absurd stories. Since they can't accuse us of weapons of mass destruction or secret nuclear programs, they create narratives so false that even the U.S. public doesn't believe them. I believe them. I believe the propaganda, Maduro. All right? I believe them. All right, on to geopolitics news here for you. And sorry, I know about the AI. We don't like it, but it's an invaluable resource here from the Duke Report, from Peter Duke, as he's been pumping out these summaries of books, AI summaries, invaluable information. Everybody go follow the Duke Report on Substack. But I thought, as we go and build our knowledge about the history of all this tyranny, we should know the history behind it. Fabian Freeway, Secret Societies, Globalism, New World Order. Summary here now from, again, the Duke Report. Let's take a listen, then we'll get into our geopolitical reporting for the day. But here's some background about the tyranny that we're facing. Fabian Freeway. Is our audio on this?
Well,
there we go.
That is the absolutely.
We're in a couple audio issues.
1966 book. Okay, so what if the big political changes of the last century weren't random? What if they were all part of some hidden 80-year plan? Well, that is the absolutely explosive thesis at the heart of Rose L. Martin's 1966 book, Fabian Freeway. She claims to have uncovered a hidden history, and in this explainer, we're going to break down her core arguments. The book really hooks you right from the get-go with this idea of unseen Fabian master planners. I mean, listen to that phrase. Rose Martin, the author, isn't talking about some kind of violent, messy revolution. No, she's painting a picture of something much more subtle. A sophisticated, intellectual movement, a deliberate, high-speed push to change society by forces that, most of us would never even notice. All right, so how does she actually make this argument? Well, our journey today is going to follow her logic. We'll start with her whole freeway to socialism idea. Then we'll go back to the very beginning in London. We'll see how these ideas supposedly crossed the Atlantic, infiltrated Washington, and finally, what she says was the ultimate goal, the Great Society. All right, first up, a freeway to socialism. And you gotta understand, this isn't just a catchy title. It's really the core metaphor she uses for her entire thesis. So the central claim of the book is this. We've all been looking for the wrong kind of revolution. Martin argues it was never going to be some big, violent, overnight thing. Instead, she says it was a slow, patient, intellectual movement, one designed to totally reshape Britain and America from the inside out. It's like a quiet takeover of ideas happening over generations, not a fight in the streets. So, where did a plan this big even start? Well, according to the book, the story begins not in some war room or secret bunker, but in a quiet London parlor back in 1884. This is where a group called the Fabian Society was born. So what is Fabian socialism, at least according to Martin? It really comes down to one key idea, their method. And the word she uses is permeation. Think about that. The strategy isn't to smash institutions from the outside, it's to get inside them, to slowly, subtly influence government, education, the civil service, everything from within. It's all about playing the long game. Now, this is where her argument gets really interesting. She draws this sharp contrast, right? You've got the Fabian method, slow, gradual, working from within. Then you have the communist method, violent revolution, total overthrow. They look like complete opposites, but, and this is the core of her claim, she says the end goal is exactly the same, a world socialist state, just two different highways leading to the same exact place. So who were the masterminds, according to the book? Well, she points to the circle of, charming, witty, and really well-connected intellectuals. We're talking about big names like the playwright George Bernard Shaw, the influential thinkers Sidney and Beatrice Webb, H.G. Wells. Martin's point is that their respectability was their greatest weapon. They made these radical ideas sound smart, reasonable, even fashionable. Of course, ideas are one thing, but you need an institution to really spread them. And Martin argues the Fabians created a powerhouse, the London School of Economics. You've heard of it, right? It's world famous. Well, she makes this pretty shocking claim that with help from American money, the LSE essentially became a global factory, churning out Fabian-trained socialists who would then spread out across the world. Okay, so that's all happening in London. The big question is, how did these ideas make the jump over to America? According to the author, it was no accident. It was a planned, strategic move. And the book lays out a timeline that suggests this happened fast. Look at this. The London Fabian Society is founded in 1884. Just 1 year later, the American Economic Association is founded, which she says had Fabian influence. A decade later, you've got an American Fabian Journal. And then, and this is key, by 1905, they're setting up societies specifically to target college students. And that last point is so crucial to her argument, this focus on the next generation. Martin claims that these groups, like the Intercollegiate Socialist Society, weren't just some casual campus clubs. No, she saw them as powerful recruitment engines. Their whole purpose was to find the bright and ambitious young people on campus and essentially groom them to carry the torch. So, what happens to all these bright, ambitious students? Well, they graduate. And according to the book, they didn't just become professors. They went straight to Washington. This brings us to the next and maybe most critical part of her claim, the infiltration of the US government. And believe me, Martin does not pull any punches here. She names names. She points to Colonel Edward House, calling him Woodrow Wilson's radical alter ego. She identifies the famous Walter Lippmann as a key player, and even Felix Frankfurter, who would go on to the Supreme Court. Her argument is that these men weren't just doing their jobs. They were acting as agents of influence, pushing this agenda from the highest levels. And then there's this bombshell. The author takes on John Maynard Keynes, one of the most famous economists ever. We're all taught that Keynesian economics, deficit spending, was meant to save capitalism during the Great Depression. But Martin flips that on its head. She claims it was a Trojan horse, a Fabian strategy, calculated to slowly destroy the capitalist system from within, all while pretending to save it. Okay, so this is where she tries to connect the dots from abstract ideas to actual government programs. She looks at the New Deal, things we all learn about in history class, like the Tennessee Valley Authority or the NRA. And she argues they weren't just random emergency measures. For her, they were a perfect match for the Fabian blueprint, getting the government to own power, control industry, and manage agriculture. So who was actually writing these policies? The book points to FDR's famous brain trust, naming people like Rexford Tugwell and Stuart Chase. And her accusation is pretty direct. These weren't just smart guys helping out the president. She portrays them as the intellectual engineers who were taking Fabian socialist ideas and turning them, piece by piece, into American law. And all of this builds to her grand finale. This is where she brings the whole story right up to the moment she was writing in the mid-1960s and focuses on President Johnson's Great Society. Her goal here is to draw a straight line from her present day all the way back to that little room in London, 80 years earlier. So let's start with something you've probably heard before. This is President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. His call to build the Great Society became the famous name for all his huge new social programs. But here comes the twist, the final connection Martin makes. She points out something pretty startling. That exact phrase, the Great Society, wasn't new at all. In fact, it was the title of a book written way back in 1914 by Graham Wallas, who, remember, was one of the 4 original founders of the London Fabian Society. To Martin, there's no way that's a coincidence. It was a signal.
So for the author, this was it. This was the culmination of the whole 80-year plan. The fact that a US president was now using a slogan from a Fabian founder, well, in her eyes, that was the green light. It meant the high-speed Fabian Freeway was nearing its final exit, a socialist America, part of a new world federation.
So Fabian Freeway lays out this incredible hidden history of the 20th century. It's a story driven not by armies, but by a secret intellectual plan. Now, whether you buy into her whole argument or not, her framework really makes you stop and think. It leaves you with a pretty big question. Where do our political ideas actually come from today? And who is really pulling the levers of influence behind the scenes?
I think that was a good summation there. To give you some background. Okay, on to the geopolitical reporting. As reported last week, beware bears in Japan. U.S. State Department warns travelers. 13 Japanese mauled to death this year. The military in Japan has been mobilized against the bear threat. Not Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh, literal bears in Japan. Be warned. And not much, well, we covered it a little bit. The COP30 UN Climate Change Conference. We covered it a little bit. A few key speakers. Newsom went there, representing America, as Trump administration did not go. Here's a video from yesterday. Protesters storm COP30 in Brazil. Demonstrators in traditional indigenous dress break down doors and clash with security inside. The Western elites bulldozed miles of forest to host a meeting on how to save the forest. The locals are not having it. And then here it is said, remember they had to, what do they say? The Amazon is the lungs of the world. Well, they had to carve out some of the world's lungs to make a landing strip for their private aircraft to go lecture us about our CO2 emissions there at COP30 in Brazil. The Brazilian government has devastated a protected area of the Amazon rainforest to build 13 kilometers of the road of shame. Around 100,000 trees were cut down, and the entire world was horrified by this development. Here is an image of said runway for private jets to lecture us about our CO2 emissions. And then here's the protesters that stormed COP30. So there you can see they're quite literally fighting climate change at COP30 in Brazil. U.S. State Department has designated the German Antifa OST a foreign terrorist organization. Here's the announcement from the State Department, little Marco. Today, building on President's historical commitment to uproot Antifa's campaign of political violence, the Department of State is designating 4 Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. The United States will continue using all available tools to protect our nation from these anti-American, anti-capitalist, and anti-Christian terrorist groups. Anarchist militias, militants, have waged terror campaigns in the United States and Europe, conspiring to undermine the foundations of Western civilization through their brutal attacks. The State Department says, designating Antifa in Germany foreign terrorist organization. Chinese Foreign Ministry says if Japan intervenes militarily in the Taiwanese Strait situation, China will strike back decisively. Here's a clip translated in English for us.
If Japan dares to intervene militarily in the Taiwan Strait situation, it will constitute an act of aggression and China will strike back decisively. China will firmly exercise its rights of self-defense granted by the UN Charter and international law and resolutely safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. China warns Japan to deeply reflect on its historical crimes, immediately stop interfering in China's internal affairs, cease provocative actions, and not to play with fire on the Taiwan question.
Don't play with fire over there. China successfully completes first phase of 6G test, according to a report out of China Daily. Promises leap forward in telecommunications, raises stakes in tech war with America. Well, now we have to have 6G because we're in a Cold War, a space race, everything against China, right? That's what they tell us. Will 6G's use of terahertz frequencies exacerbate health concerns? You stand next to the damn thing, it's going to radiate you with electromagnetic radiation. I think that's very well established. So we're going to see how it rolls out there in China. We're next because, of course, we have to keep up in the tech race with China and irradiate all of our citizens with electromagnetic radiation for a better, to download a faster video on your cell phone. It's all worth it, you see. The BBC apologized to Trump for a misleading panorama edit, but flatly refused his demand for $1 billion in compensation, where they edited misleadingly in this BBC documentary about Trump. Allegedly, Trump has threatened to sue the BBC. Trump is expected to attend America First World Economic Forum in Davos next year, according to a report out of Bloomberg. Trump told Saudi Crown Prince MBS to expect Riyadh to move toward normalizing relations with Aardvark land. Now the Gaza war is ending. Washington says it has met key Saudi demands, including U.S. security pledge and language in Trump's Gaza plan, suggesting a path toward Palestinian statehood. But Riyadh still wants stronger, more concrete commitments on Palestinian statehood before agreeing to normalization, according to a report out of Axios. And then Mr. Reform Radical Jihadist al-Shara, Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara has been quietly working with the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS al-Qaeda since 2016, beginning when he seized territory in northwestern Syria, according to a report out of the New York Times. So he set them up and then watches them fall, is how it goes there. Russia deploys more African fighters in Ukraine. 1,436 Africans from 36 countries are fighting for Russia against Ukraine. They were offered $2,000 to $3,000 and quick visas, with some misled by fake jobs. U.S. Emirati firms partner up to build AI-powered drones. The new joint venture is a result of agreements signed during Trump's visit to the UAE earlier this year. Trump loves propping up regimes that are committing genocide, as we reported here. UAE, big part of genocide there in Africa. Aardvark land, of course, big genocide right there in their own backyard in Gaza. U.S. military technology company and the Emirati state arms manufacturer are preparing to design and produce AI-powered drones at a research center in the UAE capital, Dubai. So, technocracy there. The U.S. and UAE firms Anduril and Edge have announced a joint project. They're rolling it all out in our face. Francesca Albanese, why I'm accusing 63 nations of complicity in the genocide in Gaza. We've reported on that. She's heavily sanctioned by the State Department, America. Let's see a clip. She had a long interview here now with, who are these guys? Middle East Eye. She had a long, what is it, like 40-something minute interview. We don't have time to play all that, but we will play this excerpt of the interview for you. Is the UK complicit in genocide? You better believe they are. The other one's on top pulling all the strings, the ultimate puppet master, UK intelligence.
UK is one of those interesting cases of manufacturing where the political leadership has helped manufacture consensus around the war that Israel has unleashed against the Gaza population. I've heard the current prime minister, when he was the leader of the opposition, saying that the curtailing of essential services was justified, was in Israel's prerogatives, which is absolutely incorrect from a legal point of view. The narrative has been such that has justified what Israel has done, which amounts to the commission of crimes. Also, the current prime minister has used his credentials as a lawyer who's an expert on genocide because he has litigated genocide cases before the International Court of Justice to dismiss that in Gaza there was an ongoing genocide, which somewhat is at odds with what he should know, that the moment the International Court of Justice has recognized the risk of irreparable harm to the Palestinian people in Gaza under the Genocide Convention, there is an obligation for member states to intervene, therefore not to aid and assist in the commission of what could plausibly be a genocide. So it's not ignorance, it's willful participation into the creation of the conditions that have enabled the genocide, that have allowed the genocide to continue. So the political support, the discursive support, but also the measures that have been taken. These are indirect ways to support Israel's conduct. The measures taken to punish civil society active against the genocide. I do not dispute that the methods used by Palestine Action might cause damage. I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that they might trespass what is legally acceptable. But charging this, framing this as terrorism is beyond what terrorism is and constitutes. And the fact that the government makes a deliberate choice to target civil society action as terrorists or to go after journalists who are investigating the genocide on the charge of terrorism, while continuing to support the state that practices terror against a virtually defenseless population, creates a climate of complicity, speaks to a climate of complicity.
There you go. She laid it out. They're complicit. They're genocidal. Syrian foreign minister says Aardvark occupied new Syrian territories after December 8th, including the 1974 borderline, and continues to threaten with airstrikes. We want a security agreement that revives the 1974 agreement and a de-escalation with Aardvark land. The past 11 months prove Aardvark land's claims of threats are wrong. They are the ones attacking and occupying lands. We haven't fired a single bullet at Aardvark land. Yeah, where you at? Where you at, Syria? You know what I mean? Well, that part of Syria is part of the greater Aardvark land project, so you're going to have some problems there, Syria. And then flashback to Trump, why he's a traitor piece of shit. Here it is.
Years ago, my father was a big supporter of Jewish people and Israel. He's not Jewish. He wasn't Jewish, but he was a great friend of a lot of Jewish people. And if you said, let's say 15 years ago, maybe not even that long, anything bad about Israel or Jewish people, you were finished as a politician, right? You were finished. You wouldn't do that, Congressman. You wouldn't do it anyway, but nobody would do it. The most powerful lobby in this country by far was Israel and Jewish people. Today, it's almost like, what happened? What happened? What happened to Schumer? What happened to all these people? Schumer's like a Palestinian, right? It's a Palestinian. You got to remember that, though. The power, Miriam, of this lobby, this powerful, and it was for good, not for bad, of being Jewish and of Israel. And unfortunately, they're not necessarily the same, because you have Jewish people living in New York who really don't support. You look at the New York Times, and they do not support Israel, and I don't think they support Jewish people, you want to know the truth. And you wonder where it all came from, but why did it come? And they have to get together, they have to be strong. Because it's never been under attack like this. It's never been under siege like this. But 15 years ago, it was the absolute most powerful. You couldn't have an AOC plus 3. They wouldn't have a chance of being elected anywhere. And today you have AOC and some of these people, and they're pretty violent, and they hate Israel, and they hate Jewish people. And you're going to end up winning because you're going to have the president, okay? So you're going to end up winning, but you do have people, and it's amazing.
Continuing here, the ceasefire that wasn't over the last 24 hours, 1 dead in Gaza, 1 body recovered from the rubble, 5 injured as heavy artillery fire reported in southern Gaza. They are, bombing the hell out of southern Lebanon continually. A strike took place on densely populated neighborhood earlier today in southern Lebanon. Here's pro-Aardvark journalism in 2025.
Prime Minister, I could ask you a million more questions, but we have run out of time. This is not a news show. This is an opinion show. I am a journalist, yes, but a commentator in this capacity. And I would like to finish by thanking you so sincerely for not being perfect, not conducting everything in a way that is perfect. That is impossible. No leader is. But I want to thank you for doing an incredible job, for your courage, for your moral clarity, for fighting an evil that threatens not just your country and your people, but the entire West, and doing it under the kind of conditions that you should never, ever have to. And I say that very genuinely, and I want to thank you for everything you do on behalf of all of us who believe in peace, freedom, democracy, and despise terrorism. So thank you.
Truly disgusting. Well, she's talking to the head terrorist right there. Truly disgusting. More from that. Antiseptics always collapse societies. They're trying to engineer as much antiseptic behavior as possible. So, yeah.
The other one is that anti-Semitism usually collapses societies. It's not usually, always collapses societies, because it starts with the Jews, and then it goes to the blacks, and then it goes to the gays, and then it goes to the Hispanics, and so on. And you just collapse.
Yeah, that's what Zionists are doing, trying to collapse society. Hell, they're trying to freaking bring about the end of the world, the Armageddon.
Remember that Israel doesn't ask others to fight for us. Israel is the one American ally in the world that says we need boots on the ground. We don't need American servicemen fighting, on the ground for Israel or around Israel. We're fine. We fight our own battles, but in doing so, we also serve important American interests, like preventing countries that chant "Death to America" from having nuclear bombs.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. That was in regards to this reporting out of Axios saying that report of Axios earlier today was saying that Aardvark Land is reportedly working to secure a 20-year military aid deal from America. Now that Americans support for the Aardvark state has collapsed. The cost would be at least $80 billion, likely much more. We've already given them over $330 billion. It's never enough. And so Bibi's rejecting this claim and says they're going to act on their own. I don't believe them. So we're going to have to follow this 20-year aid package to Aardvark Land. We're going to have to follow that story as it develops. According to Aardvark Land's Channel 12, Aardvark Land is seeking to formulate a new long-term security aid agreement with the United States that would run until 2048. Previously, 3-year long-term agreements were signed, each lasting 10 years. In 1998, $21.3 billion. In 2008, $32 billion. And in 2016, $38 billion. In 2024, during Aardvark Land's genocide in Gaza, Congress and the Biden administration approved an emergency package of security aid for Aardvark Land worth several additional billions on top of the existing agreement. Aardvark officials hope the next deal will include larger annual assistance, but fear negotiations will be tougher given the deep cuts made by the Trump administration to foreign aid. Foreign aid to Aardvark Land don't count. That's like giving your money to God, you see. That don't count. Aardvark Land Prime Minister Bibi, shadow president of America, says that he's not afraid of going to New York with, we're told, commie socialists over there, Ma'am Danny, as the mayor. He's not afraid. He says it's good to be a young leader, but it's not good to be a young, uneducated leader in the sense of not knowing economics, not knowing what anti-Septicism is, not knowing who the bad guys are. I think you should brush up on that. Then we might have a conversation, said Bibi when asked about visiting New York under Ma'am Danny. Ma'am Danny should arrest him if he's really who they say he is. I don't believe he is, But if he's really who he says he is, he should enforce international law in New York City and execute the arrest warrant issued for Bibi for genocide and war crimes, and he should be arrested if he visits New York City. I doubt that will happen because this guy's another fraud. It's like all major politicians are giant frauds. We shall see. If he's for real, arrest Bibi. If not, F off. They're destroying the West Bank in a systemic, sustained fashion because they've declared it's Judea, Samaria, right? And so there is no West Bank. It's Judea, Samaria. And they're going to go about destroying any way to live there, similar to Gaza, very similar. They're going about it a little bit different with this rogue, radical army of ultra-Zionist, quote, settlers, a roving band of psychopaths. Unchecked aardvark violence displaced 30,000 West Bank Palestinians this year. Aardvark armored vehicles storm the city of Hebron in occupied West Bank. They're rolling in their armored vehicles. Here's video of it.
قرار للجيش الإسرائيلي على الكسارة ونازلين عجائب حمراء تحت المنطقة الجنوبية.
Just showing you the armored vehicle there. Yeah, it's ongoing. Real estate redevelopment plan, Greater Aardvark Land Project, continuing full speed ahead. Seizing land in occupied West Bank, in Syria, in Lebanon, Gaza. They've seized all that land here now. And they're going to continue to expand Aardvark Land, the Greater Aardvark Land Project. And with that, wrapping up this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. Let me go to the channels here quickly. Over to the Odysee. See John there. Thank you, John, for tuning in. Says, my county was getting sprayed heavily today. High altitude spraying that looks like thin lines and low altitude pollution that appears broad, dense, and clearly shows a helic propelled pattern. Damn. He said, well said, Peter Duke. We need more rope. Indeed. Indeed, we need more rope. Summers is the aardvark who was once president of Harvard, was rumored to be the real guy behind FedBook, was instrumental in the rape of Russia and other tribe members from Goldman Sachs when Soviet Union failed. Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, I forgot about it. He was Secretary of the Treasury of America here. Yeah, so high powered old Summers there for sure. For sure. Best buddies, getting romantic advice on women from Epstein. You know what I mean? Total scum of the earth. John said, Michael Yon said the bears in Japan were imported by globalists who wish to destroy food production by terrorizing the farmers. Yeah, may very well be true. It may very well be true. And remember, they were using wolf packs in Europe for a while there, as well as doing that same type of routine to terrorize farmers, terrorize the people. But it's all in the name of the environment, right? Saving us. John on Odysee said the first Trump administration left us with 82 trillion deeper in debt. Indeed, John. Thank you for your comments. on the Odysee. And let me know if what do you think of the hats over there? If you like the design, if you want a new design, let me know. You can email me, Sam at Weaponized News, or you can direct message me on the X at Weaponized News, probably the easiest way. Let me know. Thank you for tuning in on the Odysee, the Bitchute, as usual. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on the Bitchute. Some shows are still hung up there. I do have an email in with tech support, so hopefully they will process all of the hung up shows over there, like 4 or 5 of them. But the nature of this show is it needs to be uploaded within 24 hours because we're current on top of the recent events, right? So you're lagging, Bitchute tech support, but we love the Bitchute audience. Thank you very much for tuning in and commenting on the Bitchute. The Kick, thank you for tuning in on Kick, Facebook, Twitch, and of course YouTube. Thank you for your comments over there on the YouTube. And also thank you for tuning in on the Rumble lively chat over there as always. Thank you everybody for tuning in on the Rumble. And as always, everybody, do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening, and we'll be back here tomorrow for more Weaponized News. Like, share, subscribe, and give us a follow over there on the Substack. Reminder, again, almost everything I talk about on this show, the links will be at Weaponized News Substack for your deeper research investigation. And if you found anything we went over today interesting and you wanted to do a deeper dive, you can start there with the links at Weaponized News Substack.